On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Sonoma County, I want to thank you for attending and becoming informed citizens about the issues facing our county. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan political organization which encourages informed and active participation in government and influences public policy through education and advocacy. The League never supports or opposes any particular party or candidate. I encourage those of you who are not League members to consider joining our local chapter at lwvsonoma.org and to visit vote411.org for nonpartisan information on this year's candidates and issues. This forum this evening is for the Windsor City Council, District 2 and 3. The forum is being recorded and will be accessible through the website lwvsonoma.org and on our YouTube channel in its entirety without any editing of the content. All recordings of candidate forums are the sole property of the League of Women Voters of Sonoma County. You may not share the link of the full you may share the link of the full recording. However, you may not use excerpts or any portion of the forum for campaign purposes. Thank you to Wetzel Lab and Ricardo Ibarra for providing this excellent interpretation service. The candidates will provide a 1-minute opening remark as well as a 1-minute closing statement. Candidates will have 90 seconds to answer each question. We have a timekeeper who will signal when the speakers need to wrap up their response. League members have created a set of questions to get us started. We encourage you to submit questions using the Q&A button on the Zoom screen at any time during the forum. We will ask as many of your questions as time allows, and we may combine similar questions. Your questions may not be partisan in nature or be directed to one candidate. If you have submitted a question which was not asked, we encourage you to follow up with the candidates. Due to this virtual format, there may be some freezing of screens or other technical glitches, which we will address as efficiently as possible. We thank you for your patience and understanding. Now, before the forum started, I showed the candidates how their names were picked to establish the speaking order. To ensure fairness as we proceed with questions, we will consistently rotate between the candidates. Now, first, I will read a statement for candidate Archie Eccles, District 3, who could not be here tonight. Hello, my name is Archie Eccles. I will not be providing a statement of qualifications on the ballot. I was born in Santa Rosa, California, 1964. My family lived in Sonoma County since the 1950s. My family moved to Windsor in 1973, 608 Park Glen Drive, over 50 years. I went to Windsor schools, elementary and junior high schools, graduated Healdsburg High in 1983, worked jobs in the wine and agricultural industry, California licensed contractor C-27. Landscape servicing residential and businesses in Healdsburg, Windsor areas. It is true, I do not have a lot of political experience, but have served on many boards and organizations. I'm interested in town economics, town growth, but regulated, Windsor schools, town roads maintenance, parks and recreation, fire services and wildfire prevention, and more. As a father, grandfather, and Windsor town resident, I care about Windsor, and if you elect me, I will represent our town in District 3 to the best of my ability. I ask that you consider to vote for me. Thank you for your support. Archie Eccles, Archie for Windsor. Okay. So now we will turn to Sam you can start us with your opening statement, please.
Okay, thank you. Hi, I'm Sam Salmon. I'm currently your council member from District 2. I was elected in 1994, the second council, so I have a long tenure. When I was elected, the issues then were growth, sprawl, and they resonated to voters, and I was elected. There's other things that resonate now. My priority involves communication, transparency, asking questions, having dialogue at council. And I think that's the best way that makes councils work. I want people to continue to say that they love living in Windsor. And that takes work. It also takes work for this family-friendly town with small town character. We have it, we love it, but it's going to take work and thoughtfulness to keep it. I'm committed to it. I'd like to make my efforts in that way. I've served on the council as mayor a couple times, and my time is up. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Sam. And we'll next turn to John. John, for your opening statement.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. My name is John Leyba. I'm running to be your next Windsor council member for District 2. I love Windsor and want Windsor to continue to be a great place to live, work, own a business, or retire, a town that works for everyone and a community for families of all types. I'm running because I believe Windsor's days are not in the past 30 years, but in the next 30 years. Windsor was known as a great place to raise a family, but it's less so now. I want to return our focus to our neighborhoods, to quality of life issues like the condition of our roads and landscaping, our parks, trails, and creeks. I have a back to basics approach to town government to improve operations and controls, to partner with private companies to improve infrastructure, and ensure Windsor is a good place to do business. I grew up in California and served on the Planning Commission in San Jose, where I grew up. I was vice president of the San Jose Parks Foundation and served on the School District Bond Oversight Committee. I have nearly 30 years of experience in civic engagement. Yes, I started in high school. In my day job, I work for PG&E and I work for Agilent Technologies. I solve problems every day. My family, with my wife, daughters, and dad, moved back to Sonoma County to make a difference here tomorrow better than today. Thank you.
Thank you, John. JB, we'll turn to you next for your opening statement.
Hi. Thank you for the chance to talk about the issues. The most important things I bring to this race are business experience and a long-term relationship with the residents of Windsor. I grew up in Menlo Park and I earned an electrical engineering degree at Stanford and ran a couple women's retail clothing stores for 10 years. I learned inventory control and how to run a business. I worked at a startup in the 80s named Businessland that became one of the largest national computer retailers in the country. Starting in the 90s, my wife and I ran a software company with 30 employees and 3,500 school and district customers across the US. I've spent the last few years here as president of Wasteless Windsor, the nonprofit that works with the town and volunteers from the high school to do trash at town events. I also volunteer for a number of other causes, such as the Windsor Rotary Holiday Food and Toy Drive, the Windsor Holiday Food and Toy Drive. So I think all this experience will enable me to succeed on your behalf as a council member here in Windsor. Thank you.
Thank you so much. David, we'll turn to you next for your opening statement.
Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is David Stankis, and I'm running for town councilman for the District 3 in the town of Windsor. What I bring to the table is 50 years of experience. Well, not 50 years. I've 40 years of experience as a contractor here in Sonoma County. I'm an entrepreneur that's worked on my third company that we own our third company today. I've worked on multiple boards, including North Coast Builders Exchange. I've been an inventory control clerk for the National American Company here in California. What I feel I bring to the table is long tender here came to Sonoma County in 1974, so Sonoma County is extremely important to me. I think it's a magnificent community, and we'd like to see it continue to be that way.
Thank you. Daniel, we'll turn to you for your opening statement, please.
Thank you very much. My name's Daniel Bryant. I'm running for District 3. And my initial interest in running for town council was brought around the Town Green Civic Center project, where I had to dig in and learn a lot of information to kind of get a good opinion on how I felt about it. I'm staunchly opposed to us having that sort of a resort in place, and want to make sure that our town councils continue to steer that same way. I love the family-friendly environment. I have 3 kids. 2 of them go to Windsor Unified School District. My wife's the Windsor Middle School assistant principal, and I want to extend more collaboration with the school district and work with as many people and as many stakeholders as possible to make sure that everybody is getting a say in how the town is continuing to be a family-friendly town. So I think that's the most important part, and why we have people come here on vacations, because they love that feel and how the town is the way it is now. So thank you, and I appreciate this opportunity.
Okay, thank you. Now we will turn to the question portion of the forum. And John, we will be starting with you for our first question. And I will say, if you would like me at any time to repeat a question, just let me know and I'll be happy to do so. John, what do you see as the most critical issue facing Windsor?
I think our most critical issue is service delivery. And put bluntly, that's a big umbrella I have for everything. We don't have a transparent, systematic way to track community issues. We have putting a customer relationship management tool is on our IT master plan, but it's way down the list and not funded. And many, many other cities and towns have an app where you can snap an issue and send it in. Instead, our residents have to call during business hours or exchange umpteen emails with staff in the town and push and push and push to get issues handled in their neighborhoods. And I think a core city or town function is to deliver services to neighborhoods and ensure that residents are getting what they need out of the town. So I would really say that service delivery and ensuring quality of life for residents is the #1 issue that we have in front of us.
Okay, thank you. JB, we'll turn to you next for your response to this question. And JB, you're on mute.
Unmute, there it goes. Thank you so much. Thank you, Pamela, for the question. You know, as I've been walking around the town and talking to the people in my district, it seems like the most important thing anywhere down here is the casino and parking because of the developments. And it's so funny because neither of those can we really do much about, except to perhaps mitigate the results of what's going on. And I hope to take care of that as much as I can in the future, say, for example, to add additional parking, or hopefully just to never have the casinos come by complaining too loudly, all of us. But I'll tell you, I think the most important thing for the town of Windsor is to promote economic development. I sat down with the economic development manager or director, Tim Ricard, and we talked about this for an hour. It's a fantastic thing to be able to bring the trains here and have businesses and tourists and visitors want to come to Windsor and promote our economy. I think is the most important thing for the long-term future for us. So that would be it. And while we're doing that, enhance our small town character. That's it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. David, we'll turn to you next for your response to this question.
Well, after walking around and spending my time talking with not only the constituents of District 3, but talking to multiple residents throughout the community, the overall, just like JB said, the overall concerns of everybody is the casino coming in. And that is, as JB said, something that we don't have a lot of control over. But I would like to make sure that there's an oversight. If the casino proposition goes through, that there's an oversight committee set up to make sure that the corridor, the fire corridors, and all the different issues are brought to the attention of the planners so that they can make contingencies. Another factor, as JB also alluded to, was the fact that these developments here in our community are fantastic, and we need housing for everybody. But the situation that is at everybody's mindset is that the developments are not planned well, and that there needs to be some type of oversight so that we can make sure that the existing residents of our communities aren't impacted by these high density complexes.
Okay, thank you. Daniel, we'll turn to you next for your response to this question.
Thank you. Yes, the casino is probably the biggest concern, and I wish that Windsor had more of a say in it. We don't, and like JB said, we can make as much noise as we possibly can opposing it. I know that the casino in Grayton and Coyote, the one north of us, I know that they're very much opposed to it, and it's interesting. I have some friends that have a lot of information, and I wish we had more of a say. I think another big issue we have is we have all these developments that are going up, but we've got at least 2, if not 3, unfinished developments that have stalled out. And it's great to want to have the homes and have them on the books. We follow the requirement by the state by getting them on the books. I think it was something a little over 1,300 homes are what we were required to build. We've got a bunch of residences built, but we've got a stalled out project north of Oliver's. We've got a stalled out hotel, and those are eyesores. Back in previous years for the town green, the location that the hotel is currently at was used for parking, which is on a really busy night a significant issue. But yeah, overall, just listening to people on the town green, especially the business owners, the restaurants are hurting when there's a really big event. It winds up taking away from their business. They wind up basically saying they're dead on those days. So it'd be great to come up with a solution that could help with all of those issues.
Thank you. Okay, Sam, we'll turn to you now for your answer to this question. Oh, Sam, you are on mute still.
It happens all the time. The priorities tend to change, with every meeting. And so for me, it's about livability. It's kind of an umbrella. How do we make things so that they make sense? The casino can't really make sense, but if it goes, we know we have to make improvements to Shiloh Road. We have to have safe paths for pedestrians and bicycles. And then we get into the cost. And then we have to look at priorities. So it's really the priority is to look at things thoughtfully and in terms of livability, how we can do as much as we can with the resources we have to make the town a place that people will continue to love. And it's going to be a challenge to a great degree with new people coming in that are going to fight for parking, and the neighborhood's going to react to people parking in their neighborhood. It's all about livability and doing as much as we can to keep this town a place where we love, a family-friendly, small-town character, and it'll take work. We've worked on it. I think we've done a good job. Windsor's a wonderful place, and it's become wonderful over the years. We have more to do. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. JB, you're going to start us off with our second question. What are your thoughts on strategies to address homelessness, such as safe parking programs and enforcement of camping bans?
Got it. Thank you, Pamela. The other day at a concert, I pulled aside Greg Piccinini, the new police chief, and I said to him, Greg, what are your top 3 important things that you're doing? And he said, well, I'm fighting drunk driving, speeding, and homelessness. And so that was actually kind of enlightening to me because, well, whereas I do definitely know what speeding is on Shiloh, it's a killer. Excuse me, not a killer, but it's big anyway. So, but I haven't experienced the homelessness that much. And so it's opened my eyes that I have to pay a lot more attention to it. And I've seen other cities struggle mightily with that with that problem of, especially watching the debates in San Francisco and how much they're hassling with homelessness. I hope that I can help take care of it. I don't know that much about it, and I haven't seen it that much for some reason. I don't know why, but I certainly will work with Greg and the other people in town to address the issues. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. David, we'll turn to you next for your response to this question.
Thank you. That's a great question. I really don't have an awful lot of information. As I've spoken with the police chief as well, and some of the issues that he's brought to my attention are a little bit different. And the homeless issues are more impactful of our area. We live over here in District 3, which is over by near Walmart, and that's where a lot of the vagrants will come together, and they're panhandling outside of the market. So the concern is substantial, and it's growing exponentially. Since I've lived here in Windsor since '74, we've never even had to deal with homelessness. And so this is a new epidemic that's slowly creeping into our community. The cost of living is extraordinarily difficult for so many people that even have jobs now. So I'm definitely looking forward to working with the chief of police here in the town of Windsor to help mediate that issue.
Okay, Daniel, we'll turn to you next for your response to this question.
Yeah, thank you for that question. Windsor actually addressed this recently in the last, I think it was in the last year. They had it come up that they were considering putting together a program to help with homeless and see if there was a place we could park stuff. And what they realized was that the resources that Windsor has are best utilized by coordinating with the county efforts and working with the existing infrastructure like Catholic Charities and all of the efforts that they've done, because it would be incredibly expensive for us to start our own program instead of just partnering with the county. And I think that's been very effective. The county already has the resources to help with the limited quantity of homeless that we do have. And I think that the town council's kind of gone the right way on that already, because we can just use our existing support from Sonoma County to, leverage any issues and help with anybody that needs that support locally. And they do tend to wind up in District 3, Walmart, as Dave said. That's where they tend to wind up because Walmart's more affordable and there's food right there. But I think the town's been doing the right thing so far, and I would probably continue with that, partner with the county, and any efforts that we can do with them would be the most efficient way to go about that.
Okay, thank you. Sam, we'll turn to you next.
I try to refer to the homeless as unhoused, and I've met many of them over the years, and many of them, some of them are unfriendly. We did have a problem person, and it took a while to deal with that person down at the town green. He was assertive, and our prior police chief dealt with it in a kind way, but ultimately there was an arrest made, and that tends to be how we've been dealing with it to a great degree. We're fortunate we don't have the problems with homelessness that other cities have, such as Sebastopol, which is unbelievable. And I've seen it there with the RVs mainly. We don't, a little bit down at the Walmart. We had an incident in the creek recently. There was a campsite there, and it got cleaned up. Somebody was able to clean it up, and it's not there. I think we have to work with Reach for Home. They're the ones that will reach out once we identify homeless people that are, or unhoused people that are living, and make sure that they are healthy, and there's not drug problems if we can help it. And if there is, we have to refer to the police. So I think all in all, we've been fortunate.
Okay, thank you. John, we'll turn to you now for your response to this question, please.
Sure, thank you. So a couple things here that I think are important to consider first when we broach the issue of homelessness relative to the town. In California, different layers of government have different responsibilities, from the federal to the state to the county as a division of the state, down to towns and cities. Recent court cases on a federal level have re-enabled towns and cities to abate camping in creeks, trails, parks, other public places. And that's actually a really big deal, like statewide, especially from here to the other end of the Bay Area, and of course in Southern California too. I believe we need partnership with the county, because their purview as a division of the state is really around social services, mental health, rehabilitation services, drug addiction, any of those issues which have a really strong nexus for anybody that's unhoused or homeless, whatever term you want to use. And we also need perhaps to expand our partnership with agencies like Reach for Home, Catholic Charities. Catholic Charities just opened their doors about 2 years ago. I was there for the ribbon cutting for their incredible new Caritas Center downtown Santa Rosa, next to Santa Rosa Plaza. And there, individuals and families can get medical care, job training, and most of all, they could get back on their feet. And so I think we really need to drive people toward those services, make sure they're getting those supports, and partner with others, because our little town of Windsor cannot solve all of Sonoma County's problems alone. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. David, you're going to start us off with this next question. Do you support Town Measure Q, which would remove the competitive bidding requirement for the town's waste collection franchise agreement? Why or why not?
That's a great question, and I wish I had more information on it. And I don't want to be a common politician and make up something. So I know just a tiny bit about Measure Q, and I really don't have an input one way or another, to be honest. That's just the truth.
Okay, Daniel, we'll turn to you next for your response to this question.
My first thought on Measure Q when I saw it was, why is somebody who manages the waste for Windsor writing something that would take away the competitive bidding process? And it's not really completely worded that way. It's worded such that the town council can determine if they want to have a competitive bidding process, and then takes away the requirement for no longer than 10 years. I think that when they originally put this rule in place, their intent was to help the town save money by not being locked into a specific waste services management company, and to always have to review it and make sure that it's the company that's going to work for the town. So I am still kind of up in the air on Measure Q. I'm not 100% certain whether I want to vote on it, yes or no, but I'm leaning toward voting no on Measure Q and not allowing the waste management company to change the rules on how Windsor chooses their waste management. And ultimately, if they are the most efficient because they've got all the supplies in place and they're already functioning the way they need to, in theory, they should be the best bid anyway. So a competitive bidding process shouldn't kick them out. But again, it's just pushing it back to the town council. And if it does pass, if voters decide they want it, then I would still insist on a competitive bidding process for our waste management.
Thank you. Okay, Sam, we'll turn to you next for your response to this question.
Thank you. Back in 1996, most likely, I was on the council. The council voted 3-2 to extend the contract to waste management. I was one of the opposing council members because it was based on an offer of maybe $400,000 that, and we didn't know anything about rates back then. All we knew is historically for the last 30, 40, 50 years, the same company had provided the waste pickup. And the county at that time, because it was really county historically, basically just renewed the contracts. So we gathered signatures, got it on the ballot, and it passed. And that's what we have now. Every 10 years, we have to go to a competitive bid. For 20 years, it was the Ratto Company. And our initiative changed the rates throughout the county. It turned out that the rates were too high. Waste Management was a great company. The Ratto Company underbid them and got the contract and had the contract for 20 years. And then Sonoma County Refuse and Recycling they won the bid, not because they were necessarily the lowest, but they did things differently, more ecologically. And that's so even though I will personally, I'm probably going to vote no, I think we have to kind of compare.
Okay,
Sorry about
thank you. Okay, John, we'll turn to you for your response to this question, please.
Sure. So I can tell you from my experience at PG&E, I've been there 17 years. I know I look young, like I just got out of school yesterday, but been there 17 years, and I worked in finance and work planning. Capital dollars are better than expense, and what that means is when a utility can borrow on behalf of ratepayers, then you can spread the cost over 20 or 30 years. That's actually beneficial to ratepayers and what we pay. So pivoting that over to a utility company that collects your garbage and has its rates set by a local agency like our sweet town of Windsor, we have an artificial constraint here in Windsor that we have a 10-year cap on the garbage contract. That is actually a huge problem for Windsor ratepayers. When I read Measure Q, I was opposed to it because I didn't like the lack of competitive bidding. So now, having learned a little more about it and the lift of the 20-year cap, I've shifted to a more neutral stance. I'm still working on getting informed about it, but I believe this artificial 10-year cap is a problem. So that removing that 10-year limit is something that I would support. I want to make sure we have transparency and controls so that every member of the town has a say, that our bids are competitive, that we're getting the best deal we possibly can for ratepayers, because that's our responsibility, is to the ratepayers in the town, and which is, of course, is our neighbors and ourselves. Thank you.
Okay, JB, we'll turn to you for your response to this question.
Thank you, Pamela. Well, as I said, I've been in business quite a lot, and when you're in business, you have to pay the bills. You have to make the bottom line. You have to make money. And the problem right now, this is an immediate problem for the garbage company, the trash company. They call it garbage company, so I can do that fairly. And that is that if you only have 10 years to amortize these very, very expensive trucks, the new electric trucks that they're required to have and that sort of thing, it's not enough time. Now, it's not like they're constrained to do that. But the problem is, if those trucks don't last longer than 10 years, then they're having trouble bidding the contracts, and then they have to rebid them after 10 years. So that limits the ability for them to bid competitively by having to rebid every 10 years, because they might lose the contract, and if they lose the contract, then they've got these trucks on hand that are still depreciating. So if you look at it from a business point of view, the town can still negotiate to a contract that's only 10 years. It's just removing that restriction so it can only be 10 years. And I favor a yes vote because I believe that the company should have the flexibility to negotiate whatever they want.
Okay, thank you. Daniel, we're going to start with you for this next question. Since the Bay Area Affordable Housing Bond Measure was pulled from November's ballot, what do you believe the council should do to address the need for funding to build affordable housing units?
I remember seeing that a measure was removed from the ballot, but I did not study up on it and what it was. So that's interesting that the funding issue is going to be there. I believe most of our affordable housing has been built through contracts with Burbank Housing through the fees to not put low income housing in some of the developments that we have. And I've seen how some of those projects seem to come together pretty good. But it seems to me like there's a bigger problem with private funding of existing developments. I know that's one of the issues that the hotels had. I know that that's one of the reasons why the lot north of Oliver's isn't being built on. Those bond measures wouldn't necessarily help with those efforts. I know that the school district is working on, and they have a bond measure on the ballot for building affordable housing on the Windsor Creek site. And the partnership with Gallagher, the Gallagher Community Housing, a nonprofit, is showing really good signs of being able to put good affordable housing that can be focused on teachers and the community and bring in, hopefully attract some more teaching talent, because that's a big challenge in our area. I've seen it at my job as a cybersecurity professional, and attracting talent is hard. So I think working with those community efforts, especially the nonprofits that have recently popped up, would be a fantastic way to work with, integrate some of that affordable housing into our community.
Okay, thank you. Sam, we'll turn to you next for your response to this question.
I think the majority of the low-income projects so far have been tax incentive. So they get investors invest money, and they defer their tax liability. And so that's investments. They've been through a number of grants, and it's really kind of on the developer to find the money, and it's very difficult. The town has inclusionary housing fees, but don't really, in this climate, don't really amount to a whole lot. Because of the cost of building, it's gone just kind of skyrocketed in many ways, where an affordable unit now in an apartment can run between $400,000 and $500,000. What can the town do? The town can really try to work with the developer mainly after they get their building permits to go forward, or getting them, to try to reduce and work with the developers to reduce what we might call red tape. The state has said any local control is red tape, and they've reduced, taken it away, and especially for affordable. Pretty much the town, and maybe a good thing, if we were looking to build affordable housing, the town has very little control over the livability parts, the parking issues. There's so many merits and waivers that can happen. But I think it just is going to take thought and assist the developer once they're on their way.
Okay, thank you. John, we'll turn to you next for your response to this question, please.
Sure. In 2000, I worked a summer job at it was called Affordable Housing Development Corporation. And coming out of Dartmouth College, I had an offer from them to go work for them. Unfortunately, they were in Clovis, so I decided not to. I went into high tech for a few years instead. Low-income housing accounts for about 60% of our state RHNA goals of 994 units. That's spread out over the next, now it's like 6 years, but it's 2023 to 2030. I believe that the council needs to direct staff to do a comprehensive performance review to examine how we are supporting building, inspection, permitting, the whole value stream, end to end of development in Windsor, of market rate housing, all types of housing. I will note the new Quail Acres development that is very controversial for the school site and all those other issues is a nice blend of different types of housing. You have 10% of the units there are actually affordable by design. I would like to see us encourage similar developments rather than having developers pay what's called an in lieu fee. They just cut a check and then the town has to go work with Burbank Housing or another developer. So I think there's an opportunity here for the council to shape the regulatory space and kind of clean it out, if you will. I am the only candidate in my district endorsed by the North Coast Builders Exchange. I think that's an important endorsement to highlight. And I trust that our town staff can really look deeply to what we can do to be a better town for lower cost development.
Okay, JB, we'll turn to you next for your response to this question.
Could you repeat the question, please?
Certainly. Since the Bay Area Affordable Housing Bond measure was pulled from November's ballot, what do you believe the council should do to address the need for funding to build affordable housing units?
I think I'll pass on that question. I don't know that much about the funding of affordable housing units.
Okay, David, we'll turn to you for your response to this next question, please.
Boy, I didn't know we could do the paths. I think that's fantastic. I have limited knowledge as well. I'm new into the politics. I really wanted to help the town of Windsor make decisions that benefit the community as a whole. And so some of these issues I am not very privy to, and I don't have a lot of knowledge on. But when it comes to affordable housing, I feel that it is extremely important in our community. And because the measure has been taken off the ballot, just listening to the different candidates speaking on the direction, I think that working with the town council as a whole to make sure that different contractors have access to grants and things like that, I would support that.
Okay, thank you. Okay, Sam, you're going to start us off with this next question. How will you work with your fellow council members to resolve the delays with the hotel, apartment, and community center construction projects near the town green and plaza?
I think through discussion and really thoughtful discussion when the issues come before us, and to bring the issues before us, to try to ask Tom at the Hampton to come back with the hotel project with some kind of plan to help that the project north of Errata to come back, and can we come up with a plan that we can work with the school district. So it really is a matter of discussion, listening and hearing, and trying to find solutions. There isn't one right way or wrong way. And we're working in it has been a very, very difficult time economically. The town's experienced projects that we've had engineers' estimates go out and the bids come in. The last one came in 200% over. And I think that's what developers are finding. And that's why these developments have not gone forward. It hasn't been any regular, they have approved plans, and it's the economics that they're not penciling out. You wonder why they pencil out in Healdsburg. I think there's just more money there, and there's more delight for some reason. But we just have to continue to work and see if we can come up with some solutions.
Okay, John, we'll turn to you next for your response to this question.
Sure, thank you. So a couple things. One, it's my understanding that the trailer park north of Bell Village or Bell Center has been cleared for a few years. The hole in the ground has been there for a few years. We as a town, the council and the town staff, need to get together with those developers and understand precisely what the issue is preventing them from going forward. A few years ago, the BIA, I think it's the Building Industry Association, did a study. This came about back when I was a planning commissioner in San Jose. So there's some transferable knowledge that we can bring to Windsor, because that wasn't a study for San Jose, it was statewide. And in their analysis, they found that only 18 months out of an average business cycle, so we go from kind of recession to expansion, there's only about 18 months in there where most projects are actually going to pencil out and make financial sense. So we need to work with the people responsible for those developments and figure out what it's going to take to get the projects on track, what would be viable, when they think that window is going to be, and again, as a town, shape that regulatory space so that we can build the Windsor of the future that is a nice town that we want to live in, and work with those folks, because a hole in the ground or a scraped lot with a chain link fence is not a nice town to live in. That's not an amenity for our downtown. That's an eyesore. And as was noted earlier, it takes up parking that could be there. There's all kinds of downsides to that, right? So really need to shape that space so we've got a good result for our town.
Okay, thank you. JB, we'll turn to you next for your response to this question.
Thank you, Pamela. If there's one thing that I've learned in running for office here, it is that the average citizen doesn't realize just how complicated it is to run a town. I mean, not to mention, my God, a state or a country. But I was at the town council meeting on Wednesday night. It was 6 hours long. Well, they should have rolled in some food, I suppose, so that we could have relaxed. But it was really something. It's not in this question, but it was really something to learn about the Quail Acres project up north, and just north of Errata, and just how difficult it has been for them over 8 years of negotiating and trying to figure out who's going to pay for what and what law applies and everything else. Incredibly complicated. And just finally at the end, they bounced it back to the Planning Commission to please take another look at it and let's see if we can figure it out. So we're talking on the town green, we're talking about Robert Greene project, which was the really big one with the hotel and everything. And we're talking about, I call it the McClellan Hotel, the swimming pool in work there. And the Robert Greene one failed because just everybody, they couldn't agree. And finally got enough people on the town council to just nix it and table it, and Robert Greene walk away from it. The developer of the swimming pool, the interest rates went up, they doubled. He couldn't afford it, and so he had to back out for now. But he still owns it, so they're just really complicated.
Okay, thank you, JB. David, we'll turn to you for your response to this question.
Thank you, Pamela. As the other candidates have mentioned, the difficulties that are faced with the developers on these projects are extremely complex and not easy to solve. One of the things that Sam mentioned is that thoughtful communication is important with the developers to find out exactly what the situations are that are causing these projects to be halted. We need to find solutions to make sure that these projects are moving forward. We need to have oversight with our committees, our town council members, so that when a project is being prospected, that there's an oversight to see the project all the way through.
Okay, thank you. Daniel, we'll turn to you next.
I completely agree with Sam that communicating with everybody on the town council and other constituents and the contractors is vitally important. It's also my understanding that there is a system in place where they're allowed to break ground before they've secured funding for the entire project. And I believe that's what really caused the biggest issue with the McClellan Hotel, was that they ran into a problem with the water table, stopping them from being able to do as much underground parking. And when the parking goes away, it changed the entire prospect of the project. And that at the same time, interest rates went up and it became prohibitively expensive to put in what they originally had planned. So they had to come back with a new plan. They couldn't build what they said they were going to build. The north of Oliver's project, I believe, is a similar funding problem. It's not the first owner of that property. And the last one basically brought in some tractors, did some work, and then left. And it's just not moving forward. So yeah, working with the contractors, working with the town council, and finding those areas where we can help a contractor be more prepared if there is a change, because it's going to change. That's the only constant we have is change. So, and then much like the Robert Greene project, I was adamantly opposed to that project, the way that it was put together, and it very much helped to get people on the town council so that we could have people who would not allow a project like that to take our town green away from our families. The town green, people come here to visit it because they love what it is and how we have events and all of the activities they can get on the town green. When the train finally gets here, it's great. Come up, enjoy it. I want to see people come and spend some money, but a hotel, absolutely not.
Okay, thank you. John, you're going to start us out with this next question. Do you support County Measure J, which would prohibit concentrated animal feeding operations in unincorporated areas of the county? Why or why not?
No, I do not support Measure J. In fact, I oppose Measure J. I didn't get into this earlier, but we had a town hall at work today with about 400 folks, and I actually gave our diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging message about being an adopted white kid in a Mexican-American family, which I know sometimes sounds like a punchline, but is actually part of my personal history. And my dad and his family, they were migrant farm workers, and he grew up here in Sonoma County, part of the first Cook junior high graduating class. And so I think the agrarian roots of our community, both within Windsor and greater Sonoma County, are strongly tied to family farms. I recognize that the proponents of Measure J are trying to really get to those large corporate major feeding facilities, but some of the law as written, my understanding is that it would trickle down, aspects of it would trickle down all the way down to family farms and potentially put them out of business. We live right down the road here from Wiseacre Farm, and we buy eggs there. I think everybody else here does, because it came up previously from the little vending machine, which was out of commission for a bit. But we just cannot damage. We cannot run the risk of damaging and putting all our family farms out of business. And that's just, that's part of our personal history, my personal legacy. And I think it's the same for a lot of other folks in our community as well. So I am not just not supporting Measure J, I'm opposed to Measure J. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. JB, we'll turn to you next for your response to this question.
Okay, thank you. Well, I'm voting against Measure J. I'm coming at it from a little different perspective, a little bit the same. But I started reading the text of Measure J. You can Google text of Measure J in Sonoma County. And I read about the first 5 or 6 or 7 pages. And honestly, I could not figure out which end was up. And I had no idea how they were drawing the lines as to what they were going to stop and what they weren't going to stop. And I don't think I'm stupid, so it kind of amazed me that I really didn't have any idea. So I think it's going to be an attorney's wonderland where they're going to get to fight this thing forever and figure out who's on first. So that's the reason why I just don't think it's ready for prime time yet if they actually want to go through with it. But more deeply than that, I trust people like Tiffany Holbrook, who someone else mentioned here. I've known her, I've had her speak at Rotary, and she is absolutely fantastic. And if she's worried that she's going to get shut down because of this measure, then I'm obviously a no, because she's a wonderful person, a wonderful farm, and that would just be wrong. I'll take her word for it. Thank you.
Thank you. David, we'll turn to you next.
Thank you. So that issue with the farms is a big issue. I'm absolutely 100% no on J. I've spoken to many different farmers. I've spoken with Tiffany that is absolutely adamant that this measure would take away her livelihood. I've spoken with other chicken farmers from Petaluma, and it's it's 100% across the board that this is devastating. That it would devastate the dairies that we have left here in our community. Our community has been agricultural. We've been agricultural farmland since the very beginning. And I think that this measure would be detrimental to the focus and future of our communities.
Okay, Daniel, we'll turn to you next.
I am staunchly opposed to Measure J. Same as JB, I read it and trying to understand what they're trying to do, basically put in the verbiage that if you have an animal kept indoors for 45 days, they're in a pen over 45 days, then you're the kind of farm that's treating your animals badly. The problem is our local dairy farms, our local poultry farms, everywhere that you get eggs from, they have to house their animals indoors for a significant amount of the winter because otherwise they're outside and they're exposed to the elements. So it's an obvious, measure that I'm not even sure how they got it on the ballot, but seeing the mass of no on J supporters at the town council meeting last Wednesday, there was a group that came in and were talking about how bad it would damage their farms, their families, and everything that Sonoma County basically is built around. I'm absolutely opposed to Measure J.
Okay, thank you. And Sam, we'll end with you with your response to this question.
Well, I'm opposed to Measure J, and I was a council member in Windsor. Last Wednesday, we took a position to go on record opposing Measure J. And there was a question about that should representatives, we represent people, should we really take a position on an initiative when it really is the individual voters? And I think the answer to that, my answer, it's so important to support agriculture. If we really want to support our family-friendly town with small town character, that is a part of also supporting agriculture in the county. It's pretty wonderful. I spend time at Schoen Farm, and I support the junior college's efforts in the ag education. And we have a lot of people, a lot of young people going into that, into agriculture, and it's pretty wonderful. I support the wine industry, and that can be very controversial. The wine industry uses too much water. they take advantage of our county, but I see it as they're a huge important part of our economics. And I personally like how the vineyards look. I personally believe that they do help in many clients, the fire danger, to provide some barriers to fire. Thank you.
Okay. JB, you're going to start us off with this next question. How might you help the council resolve the planning issues with the proposed Quail Acres development?
Very interesting question. Thank you, Pamela. One thing I pride myself on is during my business career, I've done a lot of negotiating of contracts, a ton of it actually, and sales agreements, working on contracts with big school districts and stuff. And I just like to work through the issues, propose, sometimes crazy things, sometimes good things, and just try to move the ball down the field, get some little bit of agreement. Now, in this case, they went over it. I don't remember how long on Wednesday. It has to have been at least 2 hours. A couple of fabulous presentations that, if you didn't know better, it'd convince you right on the spot. But then when it just boiled down to the fact that we didn't know enough about the whole subject. So we have to go back and have a look at it again. And that's what the council voted for. So the way I handle those things is just to sit down with a smile and work on a project, work on a contract. And it doesn't make any difference how long it takes. You just work it out until you get to the end. I always say, you're over here, I'm way over here, somewhere in the middle, there's an agreement. Let's go find it. And more often than not, that has worked for me in the past.
Okay, thank you. David, we'll turn to you next for your response to this question.
Thank you. Could you repeat the question for me, please?
Certainly. How might you help the council resolve the planning issues with the proposed Quail Acres development?
That's a great question. And I don't have enough information on that. So I will pass I don't want to sound like I know something. So I'm going to pass on that.
Okay, Daniel, we'll turn to you for your response to this question.
Yeah, this was an issue that came up at the council meeting, and I wasn't able to stick around, but I did finish the presentation at home. And the presentation from Windsor Unified School District was fantastic and brought to light a lot of information that was not made publicly, or at least wasn't easily readily available. I think the town council did a fantastic job of sending it back to the planning commission, and I would work directly with, since it was the school district that brought up the issue, I would work directly with the school district and the developer to try and come up with something that worked for everybody. It sounds like the developer is okay with there being a school there. It also sounds like they were having a hard time with the quantity of homes, which could impact the bottom line for how many properties they can sell. And it sounds like the school district definitely needs a school. So I think they can all come to a good conclusion on it. And in very simple details, there was some sizes of the homes, some sizes of the lots. They might be able to get the same amount of homes or closer to the 301 homes that they wanted to put up there, with the school site also being put in place. And I love the idea of there was a sketch that I saw somewhere that had a baseball diamond and a football field or soccer field, and it was all integrated into the park. It looks fantastic. The whole development just has a great look to it, and it would be great to just get those two entities together, hash out the details, and build that development. I think that development, although some people are kind of controversial on it, I think it's a fantastic addition to the town and following our plan.
Okay, Sam, we'll turn to you next for your response.
I was at the meeting. I was pretty involved with the issue and remain very involved with the issue. I reached out to the school board, reached out to Jeremy, the superintendent, and was told that Jeremy was going to put on a show. And I don't mean that derogatory. He was going to come prepared, and he did. We're dealing with state law and municipal codes that there may be conflicts. And so we've had 2 closed sessions prior to, one that night before the meeting, and then we had one probably 3 weeks ago or 4 weeks ago. because of the threat of litigation. And that's somewhat what the town's dealing with. The purpose of the annexation some 6 to 8 years ago was because we knew there was a school site there, one of very few, maybe the only school site. It also was genuinely a great school site with regard to moving to neighborhood schools, which has greenhouse gas ramifications because of the traffic. So there's a lot on the table. And I think the town, the school superintendent, school board, and the developer need to come together, because it is a big take from the developer, but one historically it was assumed. Our Muni Code allows for it. Thank you.
Thank you. John, we'll turn to you next.
Yeah, hi. Could you do me a favor and reread the question exactly as you had it?
Certainly. How might you help the council resolve the planning issues with the proposed Quail Acres development?
Okay. So there's a couple of things that I think are really need to be that are out there that really need to be made clear relative to our structure of government as a town and what's appropriate for a town council and what's kind of inappropriate. As a potentially incoming council member, I would never want to prejudice my opinion of a development that I would support it or would oppose it. So I think that's an important thing. The council works as a board, like a board of trustees, and they have one employee, and that is the city manager. And we need the city manager and his team, the negotiators, the attorneys, to really look out for overall the best interests of the town. There's a lot of elements that were mentioned as far as needing more information. The school site itself is presumed in the town's general plan. The general plan had its own environmental impact report, and then this project is effectively scaffolded from that under the California Environmental Quality Act, CEQA. And so if you do a development that isn't quite in alignment, like there's no school site, then your environmental impact report doesn't apply. And that's why one reason that the council voted to remand it, and this is my understanding, back to the planning commission. And there's a couple other elements there. So, I wouldn't really want to prejudice that, but I think it's really important for the council to work through staff to resolve that. It's not appropriate for us to be, negotiating deals or working anything out with developers. Thank you.
Oh, okay, thank you. David, you're going to start us off with this next question. How will you work with council members to address potential environmental and community impacts from the proposed Koi Nation Shiloh Resort and Casino project?
That's a great question. I, again, don't exactly know all the different formalities that need to be dealt with in order to deal with that. So I'm just now catching a lot of the different things. I've never been in politics before. I've just wanted to help our community. So what I would do is work with the town council just to try to put together some type of infrastructure that we could work with the developers if that project does go through, so that we can focus on the Shiloh corridor, making sure that there's some kind of, it would be detrimental to put that project together because of the fire corridors for Maya Commons and for Oak Park. So I would definitely work with town council and the developers for oversight for that project.
Okay, Daniel, we'll turn to you next for your response to this question, please.
So I'm assuming in this question, we're assuming that they get approved and they're going to build a casino. So if that is what happens, which we're all not wanting that, I understand, then a lot of the times when Native American tribes come in and they start building a development, just like the other development on the other side of town, which has 300 some homes, there's usually some level of negotiation where they're going to have some funding for infrastructure. And that can be the opportunity to improve the Shiloh Road corridor, Old Redwood Highway, maybe even, just mitigate the area with traffic controls that make sense so that if there is an emergency and we have to evacuate the area, there's a plan in place and the infrastructure supports an evacuation. That's to the extent of what we can do, absolutely what I would want to do. I know that Roanoke Park basically jumped full on, head on, great and wanted to build a casino. Roanoke Park coordinated with them and got a bunch of funding. It's part of why Rancho Cotati High School has their tag building, which is this huge, amazing gym with a ton of resources. They basically leaned full tilt into accepting the casino. I don't want to do that because I don't want a casino right across the street from a community, especially our community in District 3. But again, if it's there, then we just got to find a way to get the right kind of money in place and work with developers to fix the infrastructure and expand it as far as we can.
Okay, Sam, we'll turn to you next for your response to this question.
My understanding is the trust process will have certain requirements that the tribe will have to reach out to the communities they affect and come up with benefits to somewhat resolve their impacts. The question is how the impacts, how they're resolved. So far, the opposition to the COI is strong, and it will remain strong, and really don't want to think about it because in their environmental study, they really didn't put up, really didn't resolve the impacts. The traffic impacts, Shiloh Road, they simple things like, well, signalization, simple things like 4 lanes, simple things like signalization, coordination. And those things were attacked vigorously by the town and by folks. And that's what the Bureau is going to be dealing with. We hope that they just won't rubber stamp it. We hope that they'll say, no, this isn't the right place for it. Find another place. So there hasn't been a lot of thought going into how we're going to mitigate it. Been a lot of thought in what the problems are going to be. But we're very hopeful that it'll be changed and the COIs will not be successful in a casino or resort there because it is not the right place.
Okay, John, we'll turn to you next.
Yeah, I have to agree with most of the foregoing comments here, namely that this is a federal issue as far as the trust is concerned and the property being put into trust. And if that happens, we need to get our staff to negotiate with the tribe, community benefits and various mitigations, traffic impacts. Also concerned about water impacts. Our town council, which is also the board of directors, simultaneous role there that the town council serves as the board of directors for the Windsor Water District, has been working toward expanding or annexing the part of the Airport Larkfield Wickiup sanitation zones, a mouthful there, into the water district, right? So there's going to be huge water impacts, like hundreds of thousands of gallons a day, if that tribe is allowed to, if the Khoi Nation is allowed to build the casino there off Shiloh. So I think we need to look at all of those and make sure our staff are working through all the details and negotiating to support the residents and our interests. Thank you.
Okay, JB, we'll turn to you for your response to this question.
Thanks again, Pamela. So I think that I think that Sam hit a couple of the points right on the head, and that is that the tribe is working on getting the land into trust, and it's a whole legal matter. I mean, the tribe it's like a foreign country, and we don't really have any control whatsoever over what they do. But they are required by the Bureau of Indian Affairs to take into consideration, as Sam said, the impact on the surrounding area in terms of the people and the infrastructure and everything else. And so I'm hoping that comes through. We haven't heard very much from the BIA in terms of that. I was at a meeting on Zoom, Zoom audio, I guess, and that was maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago, where, I don't know, it went on for something like 6 hours with the Carpenters Union coming and saying, I support that 100% because it'll make 1,500 jobs. And nobody else is supporting it. And then over on the other side, every single resident lined up that they weren't supporting it. And the biggest one that caught my attention was the people who said, I live on a well, and that's the only water I have. And the Indians are going to come, the tribe is going to come and suck out 400,000 gallons of water a day. So basically what we have to do is just keep speaking up, keep going, try to work through the BIA, and just see if we can stop it, and depend upon Grayton to come help us.
Okay, thank you. And now we're on to what will be our last question of the evening. Daniel, you'll be starting us off with this. What are your thoughts on the proposal to build a 368-unit affordable rental home development on the site of the closed Windsor Creek Elementary School?
So that project is one that's being put forth by the Windsor Unified School District. I believe they're working with Gallagher Community Housing, which is a nonprofit that popped up in the last couple of years. And the Gallagher family's pretty well known around here. They have Poppy Bank as one of their other businesses. The efforts that they're doing and the development that they're trying to put forward, I feel like it's a good thing in the right spot. I know that's been a school site, and I know a lot of people tend to prefer to have it be a school site. I know it needs a lot of mitigating factors, but when I went to school there in middle school, it was very difficult to get everybody in, pick up your kids, and get everybody out. It was a very tight, there's one road that's one lane each way. And as a central community school, I don't believe it suits our need anymore and would need to be completely demoed and renovated. So I really like the idea that they're going to use a point system that's going to bias towards teaching staff. So anybody who wants to live there, who is a teacher or moves to the area, it's going to attract more talent for our schools, and it provides an excellent opportunity for more collaboration between the town of Windsor and the school district. I mean, between the two of us, we have $90 million, roughly $90 million in budget. With $90 million, we can, provide a lot of services for our community, take care of our kids, make sure families are able to live here, and that reduction and that increase in housing would also help reduce the cost of housing everywhere else in Windsor. So I definitely support it.
Okay, Sam, we'll turn to you for your thoughts on this one.
I think that was the idea with the Windsor Creek School for quite some time. The school district had talked with several developers about building affordable housing for teachers, because that's affordable housing for teachers is one, it may be the only group that you can actually restrict the housing to a certain group, teachers, because they're needed, and it's a profession where we think that the salaries are low, especially starting. They are low. So they do have a proposal going forward with Gallagher, and I think the school district's excited about it, and I'm excited for the school district. Our youth is where we have to put our effort, and not the youth tomorrow necessarily, or in the next year or 3 years, but in the generations to come. Something's going on in schools that is unexplainable. I can't imagine being afraid to be in school. So I think the support for that project is integral. There's also the parcel that leads into the school site is there's plans submitted by Gallagher also for not necessarily a low income project, but for a multifamily project. Gallagher has built a lot in Windsor. He's controversial, but he's also done a lot of good.
Okay. John, we'll turn to you next for your response to this question.
Sure. First, I want to share a couple things so folks understand where I'm coming from in the interest of disclosure. My wife, Mrs. Leba, is an employee of the Windsor Unified School District. She's a teacher at Maddie Washburn in TK. She's been in the classroom like 15 years. We're really lucky to have dual income household here because it is an expensive, cost of living town. And so that's kind of the personal side right now from where I sit. Secondly, I'm pretty familiar with surplus land issues. In fact, when I was secretary of the Alum Rock Educational Foundation, a school district educational foundation. So we're talking like 20 years ago. We helped float a teacher housing project modeled on Santa Clara Unified's Casa de Maestra or Maestros, something like that, that basically would be restricted affordable housing. So, as a planning commissioner, I did a lot to thoroughly evaluate housing, land use, affordable housing projects, including teacher housing. I would do the same thing here. It is true that site is problematic as a school site in the future due to the traffic circulation issues Mr. Bryant mentioned, asbestos in the site, just general age of the facility. And so I think as a town, we do need to explore that alternate uses, highest and best use for our whole community. And then lastly, I cannot prejudice any opinion on a specific project until it's before me. But I think gives you an idea based on my background, the kind of way I would lean towards something like this.
Okay. JB, we'll turn to you next for your thoughts on this one.
Sure. Could you repeat the question, please?
Sure. What are your thoughts on the proposal to build a 368-unit affordable rental home development on the site of the closed Windsor Creek Elementary School?
Well, I'm not familiar with that exact project, but I can just give you my general feelings about it, and that I will take from Jeremy Decker's presentation at the town council last week. And basically the idea being that repairing and recovering the school site there would be prohibitively expensive. And so we need some sort of other thing going on. So just dismiss whether or not we resurrect the school there. There are other ideas and other reasons also. But I'm certainly in favor, and I have to be in favor of affordable housing. So in general, I think there don't seem to be too many arguments against it. So let's go develop it. It's a great area. It's right in the middle of a residential area. It doesn't seem like it's going to get in the way of too many things. So that's just really my simple opinion on it, not knowing that much about it.
Okay, David, we'll turn to you next for your thoughts on this.
Thank you very much. And I also don't know very much about that particular project, but I am very much in agreement for any type of affordable housing, especially for our teachers. I think that particular site is to redevelop it would be very expensive. And because of the site, I don't think it would be as functional as putting in affordable housing for our community and for our teachers. And so I would be interested in seeing more information about it.
Okay, so that ends the question portion of our forum. Each candidate will now have 1 minute for their closing statement. And we will begin with you, Sam, for your closing statement. And you are on mute.
I'm trying. I get
All
to
right.
start. I started first and I end first. Well, thank you. Thank you for this forum. I just want to indicate that I want a council to be thoughtful. I want them to have discussion at council level. I want council members to ask questions. I ask questions many times I know the answers to, or I think I do, because I want to hear staff make the explanations. And I want people to understand what we're dealing with as a council and why it's so important that we have that discussion and know each other on council. I think I'd ask that we stay the course. We've got a new manager, 2 years there, and the reason I ran last time was really to support John, and it's been a wonderful experience. I want to support our department heads. That's been a wonderful experience. And by support, it means talking with them, and John arranges that. So it's a matter of staying the course. We've got some roads ahead.
Okay, thank you,
for your vote.
Sam. I'm sorry you ran out of time. John, we'll turn to you next for your closing statement.
Sure, thank you. You know, my wife and I got involved in Windsor politics, for lack of a better term, after the era of scandal that besmirched our great town a couple years ago. because of the short-term rental policies that were in front of the council last year. We went to like half a dozen meetings over that. And after that, it was a few of my neighbors who suggested that, I take a look at running for council. I am grateful for our town. I'm grateful for our town leadership. I'm grateful for my neighbors. And I count not just the ones where I live off of Rada, but throughout the town, because we want a town of great places. We want to maintain our small town feel. And it's amazing to be in a town where the residents and the leadership value quality of life. I value that. I used a lot of San Jose examples because that's where I grew up. And there have been some supporters of the other guy who've tried to smear me over San Jose. And I have to tell you, I have decades of civic experience, and it's 100% applicable in Windsor. And I'm proudest of the projects I denied because they did not match the existing neighborhood. I will be in Windsor for the next 30 years, and I'm excited about that and ask for your support. Thank you.
Okay, JB, we'll turn to you next for your closing statement.
Thank you. I think I've told you enough tonight about my experience. I think all this experience will enable me to succeed on your behalf as a council member here in Windsor. Deb Fudge, who is retiring, asked me to run for her spot with her endorsement to make sure we have another environmental supporter in her place, and I certainly qualify for that. I'm endorsed by the North Bay Labor Council, the Sierra Club, the Sonoma County Democratic Party, a number of respected local folks like James Gore and Bruce Okrepke. And I boiled down my feelings to just a couple sentences. I want to promote economic development that protects and even enhances our small town character. I want to focus on well-maintained streets and parks. And I want to tend to an enlightened climate action to protect what we have for our kids in the future. So please visit my website, jbleap.com, and write or call me if you want to know more about what I want to do and ask me questions. I'd be happy to respond to you.
Okay, David, we'll turn to you next for your closing statement.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity to speak here tonight. I've been here in Windsor since '74. The town is extraordinarily important to me. I love it to pieces. I grew up playing in the creeks and the vineyards as a child growing up. I want to be the voice and ears for not only the constituents of District 3, but the entire town of Windsor. It's a nonpartisan position. It's not Democrat or Republican. It's not, I want to listen to every person in the community, and I want to be able to learn as I move forward. As a contractor here in our community, I've negotiated many contracts, and I just know that with more information for me, I will learn and I will be able to help everybody in this community.
Okay, thank you. And Daniel, we'll turn to you for your closing statement.
Yes, I want to thank the League of Women Voters for having this forum. It's a fantastic opportunity, much like our Rotary Forum, which was also good. I came to Windsor in '95. I've got kids in the school district. I have a vested interest in keeping this community a family-friendly community. And I love when people come and visit. I have coworkers who come up and visit. They now visit my favorite restaurants. Every time they come up, we have already got plans to go hang out afterwards, even though I'm moving to a different company. I really want to keep this town the family-friendly entity that it is. And yes, there's some growth that's going to happen with that. We have housing development that's going to come up. There's going to be other opportunities for other developments. And I just want to maintain the community that we love. The reason people come here to visit and the reason we have the tourists we do have, which inject a ton of money into our community, is because of the way that Windsor has been very mindful in how it's been raised. Sam, I want to congratulate you on how much work you've done in 30 years. It's fantastic. But I also know that everybody here wants to do good for Windsor, and it just, it's an awesome group of people. So thank you. I appreciate it.
Okay, thank you. So that ends the closing statement portion of our forum. We are proud to have impressive and committed people running for this office, and we thank you all for your service to our county. We wish the best of luck to all the candidates. Also, a big thank you to all the volunteers who made this virtual forum possible. We encourage everyone to get out and vote. Please encourage your friends and family to watch the recording of this forum on the League of Women Voters of Sonoma County YouTube channel. see the link on our website, lwvsonoma.org. For more information on candidates and ballot measures, check out the Vote 411 website, which is vote411.org. Thank you and good night to everyone.